am filming this on the 21st of June, which is 1 week since I have tried to follow through with this new and improved phone protocol. And it yielded some good and bad results. Pretty much every day of the week, I have breached the first three rules at some point during the day, which is if we're going strictly by, how I define the phone protocol being strict, then I've already failed. But because I followed through with rule 4 and 5, um, I've been able to completely change my mornings, almost completely replacing my old doom scrolling habit. And also, I've noticed some changes in, smaller parts of the day as well. Like, um, for the mornings, I've been able to exercise, meditate, and do productive things all within, a 3 hour time frame. And I've been able to eat meals a lot quicker, finish my chores a lot quicker, and yeah, I mean, it's not actually all bad. In fact, it's actually going really well. So, yeah, I'm continue monitoring how I go over the next week. Every Sunday will be the checkpoint, I've decided. And yeah, I hope I can keep up this momentum.
1 week later.
Okay, so it is Monday again, which means it is now the third week that I've had this phone protocol, or at least it's the start of the week. Um, so to recap last week, it's only a little bit better than 2 weeks ago, um, mainly because of the fact that instead of breaking three rules, the same three rules, and following through with the same two rules, for 7 days a week, I now only did that for 6 days a week, where I only broke two rules on the Thursday. Right, the Thursday, I really, really tried not to bypass any of the blocks that I had, right? Because I was thinking, like, if I didn't bypass any of the blocks, I would be more likely to meet that 8 hour screen time limit, right? And that would be true, that would be the case if only I didn't actually play on my PlayStation for an hour and a half longer. The goal for the next 2 weeks would be to replicate more of that Thursday last week, right? I think the biggest challenge that I had is that because I'm now having to be wary of my screen time a lot, like I'm having to operate mentally at a level where I'm not comfortable with, but as with learning and forming new habits, that discomfort is a natural process. So I'm just gonna live with it. And yeah, notify you guys next week.
2 weeks later.
All right. As you can see, I got a mic now. We're so up. Let's go, baby. But yeah, this is the third week now that I've tried to follow through with this phone protocol, and this was also the week where I have finally decided upon what the consequences of not following the phone protocol should be. That was quite wordy. Damn. Basically, I now figured out what the consequences are if I broke one of the rules for the protocol. There you go. Um, Basically, the initial punishment that I thought of was that the number of rules that I break during the day will equate to the number of hours that I add on top of the first 3 hours of the day, if that makes any sense. So if I break like 5 rules, I now have to wait 8 hours, right, the next day, before I'm allowed to use my phone again, which is 1/3 of the day, which is a bit crazy, but it's a strict phone protocol. There's got to be some punishments, you know what I'm saying? And with the addition of those consequences, right, I found myself respecting those app blocks that I'd set up just a little bit more with every passing day. And even though I still broke like 3 or 4 rules, it actually kind of worked to my benefit. So that's why I was thinking like it's not real, it doesn't feel like a punishment because the next day I had things like coding and drawing just naturally becoming a part of the day. because there was a lot of time that was freed up during that morning to midday section, right? I'm just like, damn, this phone protocol was a great idea. Thanks, me. But then I had, some second thoughts regarding the consequences, particularly because I didn't feel like it covered for most situations. Um, for example, like with the first rule where I'm not allowed to bypass any app blocks, um, bypassing one had the same consequence as bypassing all of them. So what's stopping me from just doing the latter, right? And just reverting back to my old screen time habits. And same kind of situation with the fourth rule, which is that I'm supposed to be single tasking everything. Um, eating a meal with YouTube at the side somewhere um, for one meal had the same consequence as going through my whole day with my phone on me, which is, it's, I feel like the punishment doesn't really, it's not a fair punishment, you know what I'm saying? And so I redefined it as depending on the depending on the type of blocks that I have bypassed, because there are certainly blocks that are, I would say, more important. Like I have scheduled blocks that were there to essentially enforce better sleep habits. And, bypassing that, I want there to be, I want there to be a bigger punishment. I sound crazy right now. What the hell? You get what I mean. But, and it's also the same for the fourth rule where I've made it so that depending on the number of times where I didn't single task, I would add 15 minutes to the total amount of time where I'm not allowed to use my phone when I wake up first thing in the morning. But you wake up first thing in the morning by default, bro. What am I talking about? But yeah, with that new definition of the consequences, I'm gonna work through that throughout next week, and I'll see you guys then.
3 weeks later.
Okay, so it is the Monday of the fourth and final week where I am going to try and follow through with this phone protocol. And I've changed the I changed the consequences around a little bit. So now that actually actually wait, hold. What I did was that, continuing on with what I said yesterday, um, with how I should have different punishments for bypassing different blocks. What I did is that permanent blocks, like absolute no-go websites, like adult websites or stuff like that, that concurs like that that amounts to a 2-hour charge. And a scheduled block, right, especially the ones that are there to, enforce me to sleep earlier, that's going to amount to a 3 hours of extra time as punishment, just because of how big of a priority I want it to be. And for those usage time blocks, the amount of time that I went over when I bypassed the alarm should be the amount of extra time I should add on top of that, right? And also any violation, anytime I violate rule number 4, which is the single tasking rule, I add 15 minutes on top of that. So, yeah. 13 hours. 13 hours and a half without my phone. Hours. 13 hours.
Several days later.
You'll have to excuse my voice. I just got back from a family trip and I got sick. But anyway, we're here. It has now been roughly 1 month since I have started this phone protocol thing, or more appropriately, this device protocol. And yeah, after 4 weeks of changing and reiterating, we finally got some good results, I think. Because for the 5 days that I wasn't on the trip, I have an average screen time of 9 hours and 15 minutes, which is a massive um, improvement compared to the last few weeks, which have all been around 10 to 11 hours, just like how it was before in university. Yeah. Just to put it in perspective, I'm going to use Stay Freeze numbers on my total weekly screen time, and week 1 had 66 hours and 11 minutes. Week 2 nearly had 69 hours. Nice. Week 3 had 65 hours and a half. And week 4 had 47 hours and nearly 48 hours, actually. So that is like roughly like 17 or 18 hours from week 3 to week 4. That is nearly a 20-hour difference. That's pretty big. And I'm gonna actually attribute the success of week 4 to a change I made in the protocol maybe halfway through the week, let's say. I thought that since I'd be coming back to university soon, I'm gonna have a new schedule, I'm gonna have a new workload again. But this time, I really don't want a repeat of March and April, where I feel like I just didn't put in my best effort academically, and I really just didn't do a whole lot across the board for this project, and really just anything outside of university again. So this time, I wanted to remove as many distractions as possible, and that would mean I would have to change the protocol once again. And so now the device protocol really hinges on one schedule block in particular, a block that is active from 9:30 p.m. So when I want to go to bed, and 5 p.m. the next day. So the end of most university activities, which only really gives me up to 4 hours and 30 minutes of pure leisure time. But in practice, it might be less actually, because uh, sometimes I have classes that end at 5. So I would have to travel and do some routine evening things like chores and dinner, and it's gonna eat into that time of that 4 hour and 30 minute period. So yeah, I would actually have less, but as long as I have less distractions. Let's go. Now the consequences as well have been updated so that they don't add on top of the first 3 hours of the day anymore, because naturally I would be not having my phone on me for, or not not having my phone on me, but rather not having my distracting apps and games accessible for more than 8 hours a day. So instead, the consequences will now deduct time from that 4 hour and 30 minute time period, which now puts a lot more weight to it, I feel, because hey, like if I bypass a scheduled block, which is a 3 hour deduction, that's 2/3 pretty much of that period gone. So yeah, I really have to think now, like, do I want to screw myself over, or do I want to give myself the most amount of time for leisure? And yeah, I went about pretty much experimenting with that addition to that protocol, and it yielded some good results, you know what I'm saying? In the 4 days before the trip, which had even less screen time, by the way, I had 4 days under 10 hours. Convincingly, significantly under 10 hours. Two of which were just slightly over 8 hours. So, yeah, great results.